if the mid matchup directly gets a little bit more complicated, they're okay with that as long as the Batrider has plays elsewhere.
Yeah, and that's where unfortunately for I don't even remember what their name is. Unfortunately for Gringos, uh Tidehunter is a very good answer. It's a hero that we've seen valued so much, especially in the current meta, and I think it's going to slot in. I think this is something that a lot of South American teams do, and something we saw in the FG series. When their backs are against the wall, they stick to their guns when it comes to team fight. They try to get a huge team fight going, and then they hope that that's enough. So I think with Hokori down one game, go for a very simple hero, a very safe hero, and Tidehunter ticks all of those boxes, as well as being more or less untouchable when it comes to the Batrider matchup. You're never going to be lassoing this Tide.
Yeah, just generally not a great idea. So they'll have to focus on some other targets. For now, though, poor Gringos have some decisions to come up with. They've got back-to-back picks here in the second phase, so we are almost certainly going to see that I was going to say other support, but it could be two supports at this point, depending on where the Dawnbreaker ends up. But first, actually going for the Slark pick. Slark into the Earth Spirit after that. So you've got a little bit of sort of maybe mobility and aggression from four Gringos now with those two added to the mix.
Yeah, and it's a classic counter pick. We saw how much Hokori were counter picking for Gringos in the first game. Now you see the Tide a little bit earlier than maybe Hokori needed to do it, but they decided to go for it regardless. They know that there isn't an offlaner picked up on 4 Gringos side, so they want to send it. However, you immediately counter it with the Slark. Slark is a really good counter for the Slark. It's very hard to actually find the kill on him. Whenever you think he's going to Ravage, you have the Dart Pact on you, so it's never going to be a really long stun. And even if you do get the Ravage on him, you don't have any heroes to hit the Slark in Dart Pact right now. So it feels like this is an incredibly safe Slark game. There really isn't that kill hero. Honestly, if Hokori wanted to, and something I'd honestly love to see from them if they do go for it, pick the AA right now. Not only does it win your core matchup versus the Gyrocopter, where if that AA Blast does land, you're going to struggle to play versus it, but it'd also be kind of a cool pick here. But instead, they go for the win, something we've seen El Misho and Matthew specifically play a lot. And I do like this hero specifically versus the Earth Spirit and the Dawnbreaker. It's okay versus Slark. It's just a range hero that's going to right click in lane, which is kind of a prerequisite when you have this Tide Hunter, just because you don't really want a double melee lane, especially versus a Slark. But versus both the Dawn and the Earth Spirit, Wind is so good at punishing reactionary TPs. If you ever try to TP quickly to, let's say, the mid lane when a play is going down, then the Wind is always there to cancel you out with the Shackle. Shackle is such a tight spell, and it really makes you delay a lot of your rotations. You have to be a little bit more patient. You can't be very knee jerky. So it's a really good punish hero, and one that El Misho is historied with. He's played this hero quite a lot.
Yeah, knows what he's doing, and you will add that sort of to the mix for the four Gringo side. They're going to have to be careful, as you mentioned, those knee-jerk reactions and getting punished pretty heavily if your support suddenly can't show up or gets stunned immediately after TPing in. So see how much the Wind Ranger can do there, both in terms of the utility and maybe damage-wise. We have seen some of those position for Wind Rangers get allocated a little bit of extra farming priority later on down the line, but that is assuming this game kind of goes to maybe your 40 plus minute mark. You don't really see a lot of the Wind Rangers getting that much farm earlier in the match. So we will cross that bridge when we come to it. In the meantime, that is a missed ban from the side of Four Gringos. They run out of time and they do not utilize their final ban. That's a little bit strange to see, but well, they will miss out on it. Hokori, meanwhile, going all in on those offlane bans. Darkseer and Sand King being taken away.
Yeah, I really hope it's not going to end up actually mattering. Of course, you have to ban out the Bloodseeker when you do have this core Slark. That was a prerequisite, but I wonder where they were thinking, because the Bloodseeker ban is a little bit on the nose here, because it does feel like Hikori could do anything with their draft at this point. They could make the Tiny mid, they could make the Wind mid, they could make the Tiny a 4 position, they could put the Gyro as 5 and pick a carry here. They have all of the flexibility in the world, and it's something that I think Hikori, who also were pretty fast with their picks, have quite a lot to decide now. But what will this Night Stalker now throw into the mix? This is the same strategy that Four Gringos ran in the first game, except instead of Bat Rider Beastmaster, it'll be Bat Rider Night Stalker now. but they have incredible vision control right now. It's not a global strat exactly because the IO was banned out, but it is in that same vein. And they will decide to get RDO on a carry. So that was pretty much expected here. But will this Night Stalker now be able to lane versus this Troll Warlord? That is the big question. You're playing a double melee lane versus Troll. Seen this many, many, many times where the Troll is actually able to just dumpster you. He puts you in the fire, and there's not much you can do about it. As well as Troll is going to win the Slark matchup. It is going to be a game of hide and seek, I think, for 4Gringos, where they really have to play a lot of these fights split up. It's just the Hokori lineup. They've gone for a super team fight this time around.
Mm-hmm. And that team fight is incredibly strong for them, and it's something that they're going to want to sort of really play out as much as possible, whereas for Gringos, as of right now, they can't really match up. We'll see what happens. We'll see how much farm we can find for the likes of DNM and Kits, but when Hokori start hitting those levels, start getting that first inklings of let's group up and take these fights, you may see some hesitance from 4Gringos in terms of just matching up directly against them. They look a lot more sort of hit and run oriented right now.
Yeah, and that's where if 4Gringos can play that style, great, but Hokori are also very adept at punishing it. It's the type of game where you stick around for 1 or 2 kills for too long, and then suddenly you're all off the deck. As well as with the Troll pickup, something we saw whenever it fell into Envy's hands, it is much, much simpler for Hokori to take objectives. Their lineup just makes a little bit more sense in that way. They're much safer, where you're definitely going to see 4Gringos having to work for a lot of things that are going to come very naturally for Hokori.
Well,
Yep. This is what I was worried about. It's okay.
We had some issues earlier on with some servers being down. We were eventually able to get everybody back in, but we do still have some connection issues really across the board here. It's maybe a little bit more on the 4Gringos side than their opponents, but the fact remains we will have to wait things out while players attempt to reconnect. At least, though, if we're looking for... oh my god. If we're looking for silver linings as we play musical chairs, everybody got into the server. So as long as no one is unable to reconnect entirely, you would hope that the lag can subside, but there are a lot of players dealing with some issues here. So it may take a little while, but hopefully we can get everybody back in here and ready to go. We've already cut it down to really just 1 or 2 players remaining. This Kits gets back in. Pingu says his lag is gone. Yeah, I think for the most part, this is subsiding, excuse me, for most of these players, but Valky says he's still got 200, so he's going to be reconnecting here. But 9 out of 10 is certainly a step in the right direction here. 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
It's just dropped.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think Valve just did something. Unfortunately, after the draft concluded, because a bunch of their servers are now coming up as offline, so there might be a little bit of a pause to let everything kind of come back. But at least this was I think, a purposeful switch off. You know, I don't think it was necessarily out of their hands, but it's still unfortunate, especially for our South American brethren. They're always going to have a slightly bigger issue when it comes to dealing with this kind of thing. So it does definitely suck.
Yeah, but if everybody can just sort of tough it out for now, then hopefully we can get this one going, as we did get Valky back in, which means Kits is gonna say the only one that's still disconnected. Now RDO drops out. So yeah, something has gone a little messed up on the server side for Valve, so we'll continue trying to get people ready to go, but you see them just dropping in and out. The ping is going away for some people, coming back a few moments later, so it is what it is. This is one of the dangers, I suppose, of any sort of Dota event, is it sometimes you run into stuff like this, but get to see everybody just take turns TCing. I don't know, ET. It's yeah, you gotta laugh, because if you're not laughing, you're crying, I suppose.
Yeah, and I guess it's not like you can reschedule the series, but it still baffles me that stuff does get scheduled on this day at this time. It just is always a headache for everyone involved. And I honestly don't know what the hangup is either, because packs got in, the UI update got in, everything, everybody complained then, and then it kind of subsided for maybe 1 or 2 days, and now it feels like we're right back to square one. But everybody connected. Is everybody happy with their connection? Is the real question.
That is the eternal question, but at least this time it looks like we've got the go-ahead from one half. Or Gringos say that they're good to go. Analog still trying to deal with that.
No
Or
escape.
maybe he's not personally. Okay, now he is, as he is going to be DCing. So slowly but surely, we narrow this down. One side has everyone back in. They said that they're good to go, and now it's down to Hokori to try and get themselves ready as well. Of course, they are the team from the sort of South American side. I think this is being played on USE, so they may have a slightly bigger issue with ping compared to their direct opponents right now.
Yeah, and they're back in the server, but I feel like we're still going to be playing that waiting game where there are going to be quite a few pauses, but here we go. G has been called, but
Right.
fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Oh boy, pray for us here. Still got a little bit of ping, but I think he's going to try and tough it out, and we'll see how it goes. If it's bad, we may be seeing some further pauses in the future. But for now, we are going to give it a try here as we do get the second game underway after multiple delays now. One out of game, one inside of it, but we'll see how this goes. As Analog that, wow, all right. He is all the way up there and going to take the tower shot now, but he should know there's no sort of ward in the immediate vicinity. Otherwise, he might have gotten spotted out a little bit earlier, but really no wards mid from either side at the moment. They're just kind of holding on, looking for them in other locations, as actually both teams put their wards up here in the south side jungle overlooking that river.
Yeah, they've got to be a little bit concerned here, but that's where the one thing that For Gringos definitely has over their opponents is the vision advantage. Two heroes with such good night vision, they really get to scout out any aggressive play, and that's why I think Pingu is prodding a little bit to this top area. If DNM can scout out too many heroes playing on this top rune, then maybe Pingu goes for the steal, but the other thing about North American squads is early on fighting, unless there's smoke trying to get an advantage, just don't let it happen. Stick with your regen. You don't want to give up anything at this point.
Yeah, such an intense sort of emphasis on the lanes going kind of exactly the way that they predict. And if you show up to lane with half your regen missing, then it's hard to sort of hit that prediction. So, yeah. I don't know. Every region has their tendencies, and NA just really does not like to take that risk to go for a first blood play that sure is valuable, but if it costs you a worse time in the next 5 to 8 minutes in the lane, then a lot of the times they feel it's just straight up not worth it. So, see how things play out here. Hokori did drop down this very sort of northerly ward all the way up top, so they've got a lot of vision over the lane itself. If Pingu, though, continues sort of working out from the tree line down here, then that vision's not going to be spectacular for them, but it at least gets them sort of constant eyes on the Slark even underneath this tower.
In addition to that, just giving El Misho the confidence to hit some of these power shots where this hero is always going to be obnoxious. It's also very unlikely for Pingu to actually hit that D ward, even though I think both sides... No, Pingu was able to block out this large camp and actually gets his own camp that he's able to pull up right now. But it is just to play with that little bit more confidence, and unfortunately, El Misha is going to figure out the camp situation, and it is not a happy spot for him to be in.
He is trying to sort of be as disruptive as possible here, but doesn't actually have the power shot or the shackle yet, so there's really a lot he can do directly to Pingu at the moment. So, El Misha returns to the lane. He can get a couple of right clicks in. This is always one of the benefits of the Wind Ranger. You do maybe not massive amounts of damage by any means, but you're always going to be able to harass, and now see Vitali coming in with the Gush. This duo can get on you fairly quickly, especially once the levels get up. If that shackle ever does latch long term, then someone like the Dawnbreaker is going to have to be a little bit more careful with the positioning, otherwise could be an early death for them. For now, though, not really going to see too much here. DNM wants to farm. The Tidehunter wants, obviously, as much farm as he can get, but the levels on the Tidehunter may be more important. So really not going to see much from the cores. The supports will duke it out a little bit, but don't really see them doing much other than just sort of stealing these camps away from each other, as Elmisho was able to prevent that pull.
Yeah, it's a boring lane. It's a lane that DNM is going to feel a little bit more pressure in than some other lanes. I think Slark gets picked up versus Tide in the long term. In the short term, it is very hard to make these double trades, especially having the Blightstone on Elmisho. That's why we didn't see a point up in the Essence chip until level 2 there, but it'll be fine. It's just going to be the bye.
Meanwhile, down in the bottom lane, a lane where maybe we see a little bit more action, especially once we start rolling around towards that nighttime, as, you know, you have Valky and Giant here, Earth Spirit and Night Stalker, a duo that can maybe make something happen, but not right now, which is why Gartic made a nice play pushing in, forcing Giant to roll back. That means Valky is pretty far forward by himself. He'll now lose the Courier, and with Artio coming in for the slow into another Rocket Barrage, Valky did have to be careful. He's not going to be taken down. Giant very nearly falls, but back up in the top lane, Elmisho actually ends up getting it picked off there. The Slark jumps in with the Pounce and the Dark Pact, and well, we said this lane was going to be kind of boring, and for the most part it should be, but DNM is able to sort of slide his way over, helps his team pick up first blood.
Yeah, and I think, unfortunately for Elmisho, went for the Boots of Speed, so didn't have that second courier coming through where it feels like, oh, okay, I've got my second courier, I get the full regen up, maybe I have a little bit regen for Vitali in the meantime, but you go down because you get greedy for these boots, and it's a pretty unfortunate situation for him, because that is gold that will be well spent on both the Dawnbreaker and the Slark, and if you start losing or falling behind on levels, that's where this top lane does get very annoying for Vitali to stay in, and that's where a simple rotation from kits, even though you can't lasso the Tidehunter, you can definitely burn him down.
Look at that rotation from 4 Gringos. They have Giant come up to protect the more southerly water rune, while Pingu takes the one to the north, so they're absolutely not going to let this Tiny really get much. Analog didn't even go for a bottle in this situation, but no reason to let him get anything. We saw what happened in the previous series. Gunner, in back-to-back matches with the Tiny, got off to an early start and just completely rolled the game in his team's favor. So, 4 Gringos straight up not going to let that happen if they have any power at all to prevent it. So, you take your supports out of lane for a little bit, but both the Slark and the Night Stalker were honestly just going to be okay for all of the 30 seconds that their supports were missing.
Yeah, the only thing you gotta be a little bit worried about is for the second time here, we didn't see any emphasis on blocking each other's small camp, meaning, of course, that Kits has a incredibly good timing on this Boots of Travel. It's 5 minutes in, and he's already only 1,000 away, and he's been stacking for himself as well. This is going to be a really quick timing, and that's where the Troll needs to be very careful. He's been getting a lot of solo XP, but this bottom lane is definitely going to be the first strike, I think, that 4 Gringos are going to try.
Yeah, if they can get that level 6, if they can rotate down, and especially if they could somehow get in a window before RDO hits his Battle Trance. I don't think that's going to happen, but it could still work to their advantage even if the Battle Trance is there. Valky could hit him up with a Silence before he gets the chance to pop it, but right now Valky, he's actually just got to try and get away himself, but that homing missile is really going to lock him down, and he's going to get rooted as well. RDO with the RNG on his side, they'll find that kill, and well, his support was unfortunately away from the fight, but they are looking for that engagement mid. They're jumping in onto Analog. Both supports come in, but look at the shackle from Elmisho, locking Pingu and Kits together. Giant is now dropping low as Analog is going to be able to throw the tree back to get the kill onto him. Pops the Fairy Fire as well to survive the last bit of damage coming out, but the Flame Break is still there from Kits, so they will find that kill, and now Elmisho might want to clear out a little bit. Pingu, though, is the one taking tower shots. He's okay. He's just straight up dead. I'm not sure he realized he had the aggro until it was a little bit too late there, so the good news is they get the kill on to the Tiny. That's kind of what they wanted. The bad news is they do have to sacrifice a couple of supports, which kind of evens things out there. In fact, even swings the gold at least a little bit Hokori's way. But we do see them trying to make a rotation down bot. The thing is, they used the lasso now mid, so they don't really have that tool, and they're already getting jumped in on. Valky's dropping low. RDO's going to be able to take him down. The Roland comes in for the stun. Pingu now pushes forward with the Starbreaker, and RDO already used the Battle Trance for the kill, so he's not able to get away, and that is a much more favorable trade there. They do lose their offlaner, but they'll find the kill. But up top, Analog making a rotation of his own. In onto DNM alongside Vitali. They pop the Ravage into the Avatos combo, and That is going to be the Slark picked off, and now some damage onto the tier 1 tower with the siege creep.
Yeah, it's a really quiet play, but really well done in the top lane. Just not letting them have any reaction time. Wasn't able to cast either of his spells. It was just really well played and well positioned. If he gets even a few seconds there to react, and they even had a ward scouting him out, but just playing a little bit too close to that tree line and gets picked off. But that's where I think Hokori are really going to start to pull ahead, because even though Kits did just finish up his Boots of Travel, you are playing on that hard timer still. Once he gets a few more levels, once he gets to level 12, as a matter of fact, it does feel a little bit better for you when it comes to the lasso, but that's where the Blink Dagger being finished up on Analog is going to feel incredibly disruptive, and he is also making an incredible timing. It's going to be another 9-minute Blink Dagger.
Yeah, he's going to have that one up pretty damn quickly. Meanwhile, Gardic gets himself rolled into in the river. Homing Missile is going to create enough separation, apparently, for him to get away, but this is the thing for 4 Gringos that I'm kind of interested in moving forward. We've seen a lot of movement from Pingu and Giant. They've done a lot of maneuvering around the map. We haven't really seen it result in a lot so far. They went after the water runes a few minutes back. We did see that push mid where they sacrificed both of their lives to take down the Tiny, but outside of that, not a lot of, shall we say, decisive action out of them. So we'll see what they do moving forward. It may very well just need the Dawnbreaker to hit that Solar Guardian, and then some of those plays may become a little bit more impactful, but for now at least, it's been a little rare to see them doing too much in terms of getting involved in these fights, as we see quite a few heroes making their way down bot. Gardic and Elmisho are already here. You do have the Tiny coming in, but they need to be able to keep DNM here long enough for Analog to make the play. The Blink comes in. There's going to be the Avalanche into the toss, into the power shot.
Ooh.
That was big. I don't think they had the damage without the power shot coming through. DNM, he actually, yeah, he did survive the Avatos because he got the Shadow Dance off and then doesn't do much to protect against the power shot to the face. So that is a big one for the Hokori side. And now Analog with that 9-minute Blink Dagger, starting to feel quite a bit more aggressive, looking for more opportunities.
Yeah, and it's just, there needs to be somebody in front of this Slark. The reason the DNM goes down in such a fashion is because he is trusting his hero. He's relying on the vision that he's getting at nighttime, but that's where Invis Rune, smokes, little advantages that come from being blind are giving them a lot of these nice early kills and more. Pingu taking so much, but
there's the Shackle, though, to keep him locked, even though they don't have the damage the first time. Well, we talked about it in the draft. Elmisho on this hero, he is always able to sort of make something happen, even in situations where it maybe doesn't always look like it. And he has set up now for back-to-back pickoff plays. And if you're 4 Gringos, well, what is your response? There's a haste rune up on the Bat Rider. You've still got the Boots of Travel, so you could close the gap and look for a fight. This Dark Ascension will be popped. Giant, meanwhile, well, he tried to make a move, but the Shackle is immediately going to sort of shut that down, or maybe not. He's going to roll his way forward, still getting onto Elmisho, hits him up with a slow as well into the pounce, so they should be able to at least find this kill, as Pingu snipes it out with that hammer throw, but, well, I don't know, actually. I was going to say you use the Dark Ascension. That is a pretty long cooldown, but other than that, that wasn't overly expensive. It's just maybe not on the most valuable target.
And maybe they get a freebie here on Gardic, but unfortunately, you get to use Dark Ascension right at the beginning of daytime, so you are not going to feel the impact of this Night Stalker for a while here. I think that's why Valkyrie is copying Mu a little bit and going back for the Meteor Hammer, but even more so, they are still struggling to get a lot of these objectives where, again, your Slark is not the best tower hitter, neither is your Bat Rider, and it just feels like Hokori are running away with this match a little bit, but nice lasso.
They need the follow-up damage, though. Here comes Giant rolling in. DNM wants into the fight as well, but at this point, their focus is way too split right now. If they want Analog, they've got to go in for him. The Ravage does come through, though, so Kits will fall. They get Analog, but it costs them Pingu in exchange. It's 2 for 1 so far, but they're still looking for the fight. Elmisho, however, with that focus fire, is really just hammering away with the damage. DNM has to fall back, which leaves Giant really just alone in the middle of 3. Elmisho will take him down, and that is too expensive. If you're 4 Gringo, sure, you get the kill onto the Tiny, but you lose so much more in exchange. Both of the supports and Kits taken down, and really, a play like that should not be allowed to happen. Vitali, there's no blink, there's no anything. The phase boots is really the best he has movement-wise, but he was just able to walk in because that fight took so long, and 4 Gringos were preoccupied by the rest of the lineup.
Yeah, and that was a 4v4 engagement where RDO is farming, doing whatever he wants, while unfortunately for Gringos, your farmer is Valkyrie, who is not farming because he wants to, but because he is not a hero during this timing, and, well, punished.
Jump in, toss back, quick and easy kill. Analog finds it. That leads them right back into that push onto the tier 1 bot, and, well, Hokori, after losing game 1 and after that lengthy break in between matches, they are not messing around here early. 7k net worth lead, and Pingu's now been caught out mid. El Misho, though, as well as he's been playing, he do not have the damage to do this by himself, but he's not going to be by himself for too long. Vitaly and Analog are trying to make their way in. Pigpull is being used to get Vitaly into position. The Solar Guardian, though, was deployed, but it's not really going to matter. Pingu could not get himself out of that in time, and now the TP from Kits is canceled by that shackle shot. And realistically speaking, he has nowhere to go. He just has to sit in the middle of all of this. He's trying to make a break for it, but the Firefly will wear out, and RDO's going to pick him off, and they find that kill right by the Roche pit, so they waltz their way in, and they are just stringing kill into objectives, into Roche. It's just all coming together for them right now.
Yeah, and it's what their lineup is so disgustingly good at. That's why people like the Troll. It's so easy for them to make these calls, and there's not much that you can do if you're for Gringos. You have to wait a little bit longer. You just finished up an Echo Saber. You need a BKB on your Batrider, really, before he could show his face in any of these engagements. And I think that's where the draft starts to fall apart a little bit, especially with Valkyrie going for this buildup. It's great. It felt really nice whenever Mu was able to get it in that first game, but he got it first item. He was not messing around at all. He wasn't messing with an urn. He wasn't messing with boots or a stick. He bought a meteor hammer, and then he had it for another 5 to 10 minutes where Valkyrie is still working on his. And I think that's where the objectives have been so slow for them to grab in a situation now where you went for this meteor hammer on Valkyrie, but this isn't your BKB, Phase Boots, Echo Saber, Night Stalker. This is going to be a hero that has a Meteor Hammer, but when are you going to get a chance to use a Meteor Hammer versus a Tide Hunter? It's where the team fight is, again, something that 4 Gringos are not going to be ready for. The next nighttime is going to be incredibly important. If they're not able to get this mid tower, get some more aggression going, then I think Hokori could totally snowball this game out of their reach.
Yeah, the window is one that is very apparent to both sides for 4 Gringos right now. So we'll see what they can do. Valky's moved into position. The Meteor Hammer is there, so might just be able to take this tower before we sort of hit that nighttime anyway. But even if he does get this tower, it's a nice first step, but they're going to need so much more than that, and they need, honestly, everything. They need DNM to be farming, but they also want him to find pickoffs. They need the Batrider to do something similar. They need Valky to be further along in the itemization, but still find picks. So all their cores need to simultaneously find farm and still find kills, and you're looking at a Hokori lineup that's still sort of standing behind RDO, who's got that Aegis up for a few more minutes, so just not really sure where those opportunities are going to pop up for them.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Hokori, their opponents are doing exactly what they need to do. They're being very obnoxious here, pushing in both these waves. Once Glyph is forced out, it really does force Hokori to actually go back and value their opponents a little bit, which is something that now I think Valkyrie is doing a really good job at. He's been very obnoxious. He's playing the Meteor Hammer. He's doing what he needs to do. If they can get this top outpost, it'd be great, but that's where if the smoke whiffs, that'd be huge, but unfortunately...
Giant's going to get hit up there. El Misho starting it off again with the shackle, so Hokori are quick to get in there for the kill, and this really feels like they're finding everything they want whenever they go looking for it, really. The second that they push in, somebody is out of position, too far forward, or in that instance, maybe just trying to get a little bit of vision, but Hokori just keep on punishing.
And the larger issue is that while Hokori were forced to pop their Glyph to get the aggression off of their bottom tier 2 tower, without Glyph, these tier 2s are incredibly vulnerable, and that's where Kits is trying to set up onto the Troll Warlord in the bottom lane, who they think could be relatively isolated, but he is simply not. If Kits isn't careful here, El Misho is perfectly scouting out, and they see him.
There's a shackle locking him down. RDO's going to try to find a way through the trees, looking for the kill. There's going to be the Battle Trance activated, and Kit's going to get rooted up. Giant trying to roll in, but he rolls directly into El Misho, who's going to just sort of block his path, and They get cleaned up. Kits falls, Giant dead as well, and Hokori, they're just not missing a beat right now. RDO finds those kills and then goes right back onto the tower.
Yep, and you're able to get a mid-wave going as well. They're trying to split push so hard on the 4 Gringos side, but their heroes aren't really made for it. So they're playing very far behind the 8 ball here, and this is their moment where they're supposed to be strong, where they can maybe make some more plays that they otherwise shouldn't be able to, but they are actively avoiding the fight during their nighttime situation. It's just not a good feeling right now. They have to respect their opponents, I understand, but it feels like these forcing plays are a little bit too good from Hokori. It really is all or nothing, I think, when it comes down to it. It's BKB, it's getting one more item on DNM, and then finding the fight. And, well, unfortunately for Valkyrie, everyone's here already.
Down once again. They catch him sort of just trying to creep cut, trying to go in for that Meteor Hammer. And you mentioned earlier, you know, it's nice that he was picking up, but how many opportunities was he going to get to use it? He tries to force an opportunity there, and he is quickly caught out. They did have to TP in heroes to find that kill, but now, yeah, now they know the Night Stalker's off the map, so they can just move in. Giant's going to get locked down. Another shackle from Elmisho, and I mean, this is getting more than concerning at this point. Concerning was maybe 5 to 8 minutes ago. Now it's just a massive problem, and I don't really know on the 4 Gringos side what is your immediate solution. You still need to find farm on some of your core, so you're not ready to start fighting back right now.
Yep, for 4 Gringos to win this game or even get a foot back in this game, it's all about this BKB timing, but more so than that, they need to find this Tiny. If they knew how alone Analog is right now, they would be able to make this play, but Analog is actually the one trying to kill Kits, and he broke his TP, so his bat's going to be on the run for a while here, but it's just for a while here. He is almost assuredly going to go down, and yep, Elmisho again.
Elmisho just calling his name over and over again. 2-2 and 13 now on the Wind Ranger. He's just been involved in almost every single play, and I don't know. It's just at this point, 4 Gringos, it feels like they're getting staggered now as well. Their heroes are getting sort of picked off, and not in any sort of team fight attempt, just multiple instances of them being alone or close to alone across the map and just getting punished. So if Hokori can keep on finding those kills, if they can keep on making sure that 4 Gringos are 1 to 2 sort of heroes down at any given moment, then, well, eventually you have to assume that they're going to feel the confidence to push for that next high ground or start setting up around the Roche pit. We're about a minute and a half away from Roche respawning here.
Yeah, the only way that 4 Gringos get back in this game is if they start finding targets to cast their ultimates on, whether it's not... Oh
man. Blinked into the path of the rolling boulder. That's just not fair. Giant gets locked down, taken out, Analog with his 9th kill, and they're just kind of styling on their opponents right now. And if you're 4 Gringos, at least they're trying to take advantage of some of these opportunities. While their supports dies, the cores are attempting to farm. It's just... it feels like they have to sacrifice so much to get just the smallest little bit of farm on the map right now.
Yeah, they're doing such a good job of forcing their opponents to one side, seeing them walking out, going and killing them. I think Valkyrie's probably going to be the next target here. Might have to use the Dark Ascension to survive, and isn't even going to do that. So it's just a really unfortunate circumstance for them. The one way they get back here is, again, Kits gets a BKB, he lassos the Tiny, they Soul Guardian, they dump everything. The biggest issue right now is that they're unable to find any hero they want to actually kill. Because you're not killing the Tidehunter, you're not killing the Troll, you're going to get turned on if you try to kill him. So you need to find Analog, and I think Analog has been giving them a few different situations where he's by himself. He is playing isolated from his allies, but they're not making any decisive decision right now. And honestly, in the current moment, I understand why they're sitting on their base. They feel scared. They know that if this smoke play doesn't work out, they're going to have a Night Stalker without Dark Ascension, and it's daytime for another 3.5 minutes, but that's where, okay, here they go.
DNM gets taken down right away. They do have multiple heroes in onto Analog. They are going to open up with the lasso, but there's going to be the Ravage connecting onto everybody. Elmisho coming in now with the focus fire. They're going to take down Giant. Analog does eventually fall, though, so that is a lot of that damage being taken away, but you see that lineup for 4 Gringos. they're still just getting pushed back, and Valky may not actually make it. The power shot is going to finish him off, and, well, all of that to take down the Tiny really just isn't going to work, and now Hokori are in onto their opponent's high ground.
Yeah, unfortunately, just wasn't able to actually relocate anyone, and Vitaly had a really fantastic Ravage there. He was actually able to catch DNM without either of his spells, so he falls, he dies pretty much immediately, and that's a 4v5 that you just lost right there. Where now you committed the Dark Ascension, you're not going to have it for 95 more seconds, and Roche is respawning in a minute. This is getting really difficult for them to actually find that path back in. I think all they can do at this point on the 4 Gringos side is push in that bottom lane, try to get the creeps over on that tier 2 tower, catch Analog once more before he has this BKB, and then the game can even out slightly more. But if they don't find this Tiny, again, their targets are so slim. You're either killing El Misho or you're killing the Tiny. Anybody else either doesn't matter or is incapable of dying, and they're going to try for Vitaly, but they shouldn't. They should just give up on this play right now. And yeah, they do.
Trying to ignore him, looking to push into the river instead, but that is going to run them into RDO. They're looking for the kill on Gardic first, though, and they may be able to get it, so the Gyrocopter will fall, but I don't know. Once these BKBs wear off, things are going to get a little bit rough for them. El Misho now pushing in, and yep, that's where things turn around. Giant goes down, Valky dead, Kits will go down as well, and Pingu, well, maybe he can make it out. El Misho's looking for the Shackle. Never mind, Analog's in there first with the Avatos. There's the Shackle to follow it up, and Pingu will be taken down.
And the wave is right here. Roche is going to be respawning in a minute. DNM's going for the split push play, trying to cut their wave, but it honestly doesn't feel like it's going to be enough. That was a good try, but when Kits has to pop his BKB as early as he was forced to, even if you make it back towards your vision that even Hokori didn't care about, they just were like, okay, sure, you have that ward up there, but we're just going to walk away from it, walk around it. You just lose the fight immediately, and this is at least going to be 2 racks without any contention. But the bigger issue is, yeah, the game's over. That's the big problem. It's a smart decision, though. I don't think they had a path back in here.
Just getting hit hard so early on and really not having any sort of response. They were just constantly getting battered around, and you see the results. At a certain point, there was only so much they were going to be able to do. The quick GG called, and Hokori are able to tie up the series there at 1-1.
Yeah. And now game 3 is going to be interesting because this was a much different Hokori than the one we saw in that previous game. I think they did everything correctly. They played around the fact that they were going to win their offlane. I think the last pick troll is just a little bit too brutal. I understand why they wanted a hero like the Night Stalker. You want that vision advantage. You want that kite ability, but you forfeit the lane hard versus the Earth Spirit Night Stalker. As soon as that troll is on the field, you have to play differently. You have to play to cut waves. You can't just lane it straight up. And if Valky wanted to make this decision to go for the Meteor Hammer, I think you just rush it. You just get it as soon as you can. And then that bottom tower dies 5 minutes sooner. After that, you get to play your game a little bit easier. They just ran out of space to work with. And for the 3rd time in a row, Tiny's a good hero. You make plays happen, and it feels like you're always getting away with it. I feel like there have been so few teams actually able to punish the Tiny at this point.
Yeah, the pick has cropped up so many times today, and for the most part, the results have been pretty spectacular. So, Hokori able to take the win here in Game 2, which means that we are going to our first Game 3 of the playoffs here. So, the series comes down to one final game. We'll have to see whether Hokori can take this newfound momentum and string it into back-to-back victories to take the series, or if we're going to see 4 Gringos maybe tap back into what worked for them in Game 1 to try and sort of steal this one for themselves. So, Game 3 is going to be coming up in about 10 minutes. In the meantime, we'll be stepping away, so stick around. Game 3 is going to be coming your way in just a few minutes.